You are listening to the Tricorder Transmissions.
Weekly Trek, Episode 7, first week of June 2018.
Namaste, Homo sapiens. You're listening to Weekly Trek. Weekly Trek is a Tricorder Transmissions podcast network weekly show covering the news and current events in the Star Trek universe with rotating hosts from the Tricorder Transmissions network. Each week, our hosts hand-select Trek news from around the internet and present them to you with our analysis. Think of it like the 6 o'clock news, but for Star Trek. I'm Heather Barker, co-host of DiscoTrek and Shore Leave, and with me is my great friend Shashank Avvaru, host of PoliTreks. Hi, Shashank.
Hi, Heather. I usually use a tagline, but someone a lot cooler than me just used it, so there is no point in trying.
It's a great tagline, and I'm wondering why we don't have that in our t-shirt shop yet.
That's our next that should be our STLV exclusive.
I think we're going to have to make that happen in time for STLV. It's a great tagline. So thanks for letting me borrow it.
I'm more than happy to. Like I said, someone a lot cooler, a lot smarter said it. So now it's just in the ether, and that's great.
Not smarter or cooler. We're equally smart and cool. So we're covering news from the last week. I guess it's like the 5th week of May and the first day of June. Technically, next week will be the first week of June. It was a bit of a slow news week for Star Trek, but we have come up with some choice items to cover. I think that first in our lineup is something to do with Saru. Shashank, do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah, Bo Yeon Kim, one of the creatives behind Star Trek Discovery, shared a tweet about how Saru's makeup originally was going to have a lot more eyes, and his head almost resembled a weird hybrid between a deer and a wolf. So I'm looking at this picture right now, and if you imagine an animal's head halfway between a deer and a long-eared wolf, and you imagine a small mouth at the bottom and then eyes all over, that was originally what Saru was going to be. And the makeup team did, of course, go the other way around. And I honestly think the Saru we got is a lot better. What do you think?
Yeah, the Saru with all the many eyes, well, it's actually a very impressive looking makeup, and I think it's very fitting for Doug Jones and the characters that he's played, and I think that's what they were going with, is just giving him something very otherworldly. I don't know if people have seen like Pan's Labyrinth or Shape of Water, but I guess Pan's Labyrinth is more what this reminds me of. But yeah, the too many eyes, we talked about this in the latest episode of DiscoTrek because we did a deep dive on Saru. Yeah, not so great. Not a fan. I'm glad that they went with the regular Saru that we know now. I think that the makeup is still impressive, and I'm guessing that Doug Jones is probably very happy with that decision.
It's interesting that you bring up Pan's Labyrinth and Shape of Water because they're both Guillermo del Toro's movies, and this character looks exactly like Guillermo del Toro's creatures. And honestly, because I am such a comic book nerd, my head went to Hellboy. And in Hellboy, there is a creature toward the end of Hellboy 2, which has eyes inside the palm of its hands. And the way it sees, it just puts its hands on the top of its head and it opens the palm, thereby showing those eyes. And when I saw this character, I know Star Trek is known for weird, extravagant makeup creatures. I still will always fight the battle that our Star Trek makeup team deserved the makeup Oscar for Star Trek Beyond because that was incredible.
Oh, yeah.
But it's funny how both of us could immediately look at this and tell that this creature is actually fantasy and not a sci-fi Star Trek creature. So I guess whoever made this decision made the right decision, and I'm glad we got the Saru we got.
Yeah, I definitely, we found this on Trek Core. They've got a great article. They have the original art that Boy Young Kim designed, or I think she's the one that did it. Um, and then they've got a link to the video, I think, somewhere in here on Facebook. It was a live feed, a 35-minute discussion with Neville Page and Glenn Hetrick, which I think you can still get access to. And they have the whole interview there, and I will encourage everyone to actually watch the video and ignore what they're saying about the Borg, because there are a few articles out that are very misleading, suggesting that we're going to see the Borg in season 2 of Star Trek Discovery, and that's not what the conversation was about. So go take a listen, and if you've got that disorder thing that Jeff has, where if you look at things with many holes, it freaks you out, beware of that makeup, because it will trigger. I can't remember what it's called, but Jeff knows, and it makes your skin crawl when you see all the holes in something. So just keep that in mind if you're going to go check out Saru's makeup.
And while you're on Trekcore, just peruse through some of their newer articles that talk about a library of rare photos that they're building up. What do you have to say about it, Heather? Have you seen it yet?
I have looked through some of them. They're pretty neat. I'm curious whether we'll see anything like this at STLV. I really enjoyed last year. They had the TNG, like unseen photos gallery, along with the 10 forward. There we go. With the 10 forward set. And so that was really neat to see. So it would be cool if some of these were released at STLV as well. I don't see that many DS9 ones. There are a couple on the page, but that would be something really cool. What do you think?
It would be a great extension for this year, since we're celebrating the 25th anniversary of DS9, that it'd be a DS9 focused photo gallery with all the rare photos that these guys have. And another thing that I want to see in DS9 is what they did for TNG last year, which is making an art poster for every episode. I think that would be great for DS9 fans as well, to see the same thing that they had, which was just a row of art posters for each of the episodes for TNG. I wish they did something like that along with these rare photos, maybe bring in some of the props that have been hanging around, just bring us maybe one of the sets. That would be great.
Yeah, sideline over to STLV chatter, but I think that those are all really great suggestions and ways that creation could make up for the lack of appearances with different celebrities. And we'll talk about that more later in a different segment here. But I would love to see that, and I'm a big fan of Juan Ortiz, so if he's doing DS9 posters, they better be there, because that just makes a super great addition to the convention. One quick side note about Saru that I forgot to mention is that the next Star Trek Discovery novel, Fear Itself, which is a Saru-focused book, comes out on Tuesday, June 5th, which is my birthday. So I'm super
Advance
excited.
happy birthday.
Yeah, thank you. I'm getting the Saru book on my birthday after I just did a Saru episode in DiscoTrek. So I'm just super, super excited. It's by James Swallow. Go pre-order it. Go buy it at the bookstores. June 5th, it'll be out. And if it's anything like David Mack and Dayton Ward's books, it will be phenomenal. So I'm really excited. And then we're going to be talking about it on Reading Trek down the road. So super, super fun. And I need to find a Saru pin at STLV. So speaking of pins, I think we have some news from FanSets, don't we?
I have been chomping at the bit to talk about this since I've seen this earlier this afternoon. But FanSets is bringing in some STLV exclusives that will only be sold probably at their stall, at their little booth inside the vendor area. And I really, really hope when they say exclusive, they mean it, because these pins look so good. They should actually be reasons why nerds like me should come to the convention, is so we can spend our money on more little metal things that we don't need. What do you think about these? They look beautiful. And my favorite so far is the wheelchair-bound Menagerie Pike.
I love that one. That is going to be a must have, especially with Pike being in the next season of Discovery. That is such a cool looking pen. We had the Star Trek Beyond Kirk version finally released, and then Orion Vina is there too. So she will be pretty cool to have. Like, good, lots of women pins. So thank you, FanSets, for making women pins, unlike other companies that leave women out. They also just released an Arium pin, finally, from Discovery. She's the augmented human that helps operate Spore Drive. So she'll be available. There's a USS Franklin ship pin available. And then it looks like what they're doing for DS9. For the DS9 25th anniversary at STLV, they're going to have a super rare show-only pin limited to 100 pieces. So if you are undecided about when to go to STLV or what ticket to buy, get your GA weekend or above, get into the vendor's room on Tuesday night and go get that pin, because it will sell out possibly that night.
Oh, absolutely. I don't expect it lasting any longer than that, because ever since they debuted their pins, and the party that they had last year was a great PR move for them. And everybody I know now who's a Trekkie has heard of FanSets in some way, and they already have a list of things that they want to buy from FanSets at STLV. Another pin that they showed in this article, which it bookends with, is the LLAP pin, which is Spock's hand in the Vulcan salute position and LLAP going across the palm diagonally. And it's a beautiful pin, and I believe that's also going to be an STLV exclusive. And in fact, they say they also are having another sponsored party, just like they did in 2017. So and I believe last year they had a party only pin. If you went to the party, you got that pin. And
I don't know, because I didn't go to the party.
this year, no matter what happens, we have to stop by that party. I don't care if I have to drink 5 cups of coffee to stay awake. I will go get that pin and come home and then fall asleep.
Yeah, it's all working out. So actually, good timing. The FanSets / Trek Geeks party is going to be on Friday night of STLV. So it will not conflict with our very own Night of Diversity party on Saturday,
Yay.
which is the greatest, super awesome news. I truly regretted not getting to go to the party last year, because everyone who went told me how amazing it was, and watching everyone win these pins was just, I was so envious. I'm a huge fan of FanSets. We've had the guys on the show on Shore Leave for the past couple years, and they will be back this year to talk about these pins, so they might give us a little preview of what a secret pin may be. But I have, oh my gosh, somewhere between 10 and 20 FanSets pins on my pin board. And so I will certainly be adding the poker chip pin. I don't care who's on it. I'm going to get that one. I'll definitely get the Deep Space Nine pin. I'll definitely get the LLAP. Like, I'm already planning to spend a bunch of money at FanSets.
Yeah, who needs to eat food when you can buy pins?
Yeah, I'll eat at Wetzel's Pretzels. Like, that's cool with me. I just want my FanSets, and I'm definitely going to go to the party. I hope that everyone else will make a note Friday night of STLV. It's to be announced. There's an event on Facebook. Go to the Trek Geeks group, Camp Kittimer. You can find it there, and I think you can also find it via the Trek Geeks page and perhaps the FanSets page.
Speaking of STLV, and since we got to share some really good, joyful news that I think should be a great reason for people to come to STLV, I've also heard some rumblings that we discussed about STLV, about some of the guests maybe not appearing. Do you want to tell us about that, Heather?
Yeah, so there's not a lot that's known right now. Within the unofficial Star Trek Las Vegas Facebook group that we manage, there is some chatter. People are disappointed that there's not a big showing for DS9, especially with this being the anniversary year. And for those who aren't aware, I just have to emphasize the likelihood of Avery Brooks attending is pretty much slim to none. He's been out of the convention circuit for quite some time now. There are rumors of, oh, it's his health, or he just doesn't want to do it. He's not been involved with the DS9 documentary, What We Left Behind. So I think it's just best if, not to crush everyone's dreams, but to just be realistic, that he's not going to attend, and also respectful of whatever his reasons are, along with the other guests. Now, I did find out today via Twitter that Rene Auberjonois will not be attending, and he put it out there. So we'll just let you know that apparently this is Creation's decision. I don't know if there was a dispute over what they're paying him to attend. We don't know if Nana is coming. She hasn't said anything on Twitter, and she's not on the guest list. Armin Shimmerman is also not going to be there. Apparently he's in a play, but there could be similar reasons like with these negotiations to get them there. So I just want to emphasize, if you want to see these guests and any other guests at the convention, the best thing to do is to email Creation at customer.service@creationent.com and let them know. Like, I totally get, people are disappointed. Of course we want to see the whole cast there. I think Alexander Siddig is still not announced. And so when we have these key members of the cast that aren't present, it definitely is disappointing, but there are reasons why. And I think it's important to let Creation know what you're upset about. And then at the same time, consider that, these are all actors who are working, most of them anyway. They have stuff that they're doing, or they have a reason. And until we know that the reason is Creation isn't inviting them back or whatnot, we have to respect their choices for not attending. But let Creation know. Let's get Renee and Nana and maybe Armin there. And we still have a pretty impressive lineup from DS9 attending, in my opinion.
I would firstly like to cover a disturbing trend that I noticed about just the overall reception to STLV 2018 so far. Last year, I bought my general admission ticket almost 4 to 5 months before the event, and I still had to pay more than what I had to pay for this year. And I just bought my ticket probably a month ago, and they're still selling it at the super early bird rate. I know that that's only available to a limited number of people, and the fact that that is still available 2 months out from the event shows that there aren't going to be as many people that are attending as they did last year, which makes sense because last year was TNG's 25th anniversary. But I wonder if that is directly related to the fact that important guests like this for DS9 25th anniversary, aren't going to be there. With what you have said so far, it looks like 4 of the 6 main cast members are probably either not going to be there or they're definitely not going to be there. And that just pushes the narrative that overall the Star Trek franchise wants to put away DS9, even though there are so many fans and they want to keep catering to the TOS and TNG fans. That breaks my heart because DS9 is my favorite show. And B pushes this narrative also with Will Wheaton and Creation and Chris Pine and Creation and now Rene Auberjonois and Creation, and last year Alexander Siddig cancelled at the last minute, which that's understandable, but that's neither here nor there. The fact that there are these people that would make DS9's 25th anniversary mean a whole lot aren't going to be there, that is definitely concerning, not just for us as fans, but it should be for Creation as well, because they sold $20, $25, $30 tickets last year just for that 2-hour session with the TNG's cast for the 25th anniversary show. Imagine what they could have done. I would think they would do at least similar business if they could get the entire cast together. But the fact that that is clearly not happening, that breaks my heart.
Yeah, it's sad. And I mean, I completely agree. If this is an issue where Creation won't pay them, a raise or whatever, it's just sad. Like, consider the fact of how much the ticket prices go up every year. We're paying, that early bird weekend GA ticket, I think is like $330. and I want to say last year it was like $250.
Oh,
The
wow.
early bird. It started off around $250, and then they went, I think this was last year, where they went, it sold out, and then they introduced it again and hiked it up. It was either last year or for the 50th, and there was a lot of outrage over that. But I mean, it's, it's not the 50th, so we're not going to have a crazy sellout. That was really a 1 year type of thing. TNG 30 definitely attracted a lot of people. I think that TNG is extremely popular, and they did have Patrick Stewart. They did have the majority of the cast except Jonathan Frakes. Yeah. And, he had weather issues with his plane.
Right. I think he sent pictures of why he was just stuck at the airport and he couldn't make it.
Yeah, and that's where it just is. It's very upsetting to me when fans express outrage over something that's not controllable. Like, they did everything they could to get him to the convention. He did still come to the convention. Unfortunately, he had to miss the panel, just like you would have had to miss the panel if your flight was delayed. So that's where I just ask that people be respectful of these actors, because they're people too, and they deal with real life situations just like you and I. But when it comes to DS9, it's very frustrating. I'm excited because there still are a lot of actors attending. Some may call them secondary characters, but to me, so many of those characters still played major roles. Like Andrew Robinson is going to be there, and he hasn't been there for a few years. So I'm excited about that, but it is questionable as to why Creation isn't doing what they need to do to get at least Renee, Nana, and Armin there. And again, I just tell people to reach out to Creation and let them know that you're upset. That's how we wound up getting the TNG panel included in the ticket packages for Copper and Above, because they wanted to charge everyone the $30 for that. And there was outrage, and the fans spoke up, and so Creation basically paid for everyone except for GA, which is typical with things like the gala and everything. But DS9 is also, has been my favorite Star Trek up until Discovery, and I think that they are definitely doing a disservice to DS9 by not focusing on making it what it could be.
Couldn't agree more with everything you said. But the silver lining, if there is one you could look at, is that Khomeini is going to be there. At least he's scheduled to be there, so we can all go up to him and make engineering deck jokes. So yay.
And he doesn't attend every year, so that's a big deal. And then another really fun thing, they actually just announced, it's been announced. So Michael Westmore is making up Casey Biggs as Damar, so he'll be in makeup. And then now the photo op is available so that you can get your photo op with Casey Biggs as Damar, which is fun, and that is for DS9. And it's $50, so it's reasonable, I think. And I think that'll be a really fun photo shoot to be, full. I assume it's from the head up Cardassian. I don't know if he's going to do hands or anything like that, but it's always an on-stage appearance, and you watch him do the makeup on stage. So, that's really cool. And aside from that, we'll see what happens with the rest of the photo ops. But I think it's just important to realize that there is a very large showing of cast members for DS9, and those people deserve our support and understanding. Should we not get, people like Renee and Nana, I don't want to, look down on everybody else who does show up. I think that they should be celebrated.
You're right. And upon hearing what you're saying, I also would agree with a lot of the fans that say that, the main cast, unlike TNG, is a big part of the show, but they're not the show. Some of the best episodes of that show are Garrick and Dr. Bashir just hanging out in the holodeck, or just side characters going off on missions and we finding out more about them. So it's almost there is again a silver lining to be looked at in this entire situation, irrespective of how the situation turns out. But I do think it'll be a missed opportunity for Creation if they do not bring up at least one of the sets from DS9. And with that, I just want to know your opinion. What would you like to see, Heather, as a set that people can go take pictures at, like we had 10 forward last year?
Oh man. Like, I want a real Quarks. I mean, we get, like, we do get somewhat of a set for Quarks. But I think that I never got to go to the experience, so I can't even compare what is in my head to that. But I think, having Quarks is just such a staple. I don't know. When I think of STOV, that's what I think of, and I would like to see more than just a sign and one little bar area in a big open space room that obviously is not Quarks.
If it is
What
a
about
Quarks, for me, this is completely unreasonable. But I think they should just make an entire baseball stadium so all of us can dress up as the Niners.
I think hopefully there will be like a Niner photo op. I've never seen, and I mean like a unofficial photo op thing, because I've seen a lot of people dress up, and I know there are some people coming this year. But it would be fun to like have enough people to make a team and take a photo of them. I think that would be pretty cool.
Teams and getting people together, I do have a little bit of nerd love to share about one of the new comic book series from Star Trek. Have you followed or heard anything about Through the Mirror, which is a new series from IDW, Heather?
No, I'm the bad, and this is terrible, guys. I used to manage a comic book store. But I have somewhat been priced out of buying comics with my life situation, and I haven't gotten to read much of anything unless it's been like a freebie that someone has sent me. I hear that all of these Mirror Universe books are phenomenal, though.
I honestly, objectively think that if we ever had a mirror universe of the next generation, they would have just, if they took panel to panel from what they've been doing so far with the Mirror Broken series and put them as the show, it would have been incredible. Some of the best Star Trek TV you would have gotten. Anyway, the one I wanted to talk to you about is this new series they're doing called Through the Mirror. And if it sounds ominous, it is, because the entire premise of the series is the Mirror Universe Picard and his crew decide to lure our universe's Picard into the Mirror Universe and take over the USS Enterprise. Now, why they need the Enterprise and what the fight is overall, I'll let you guys discover that. But Through the Mirror #5 just came out, and everything about the story so far is incredible. And just the story, the idea that the exact opposite of the full of integrity and honor crew that we know want to steal this ship, and how our crew fights their own mirror crew is pretty incredible. So I highly recommend everybody listening to seek out Through the Mirror. Go to your local comic book store, support comic book stores, and buy them. It's $3.99 an issue, and it's definitely well worth your time and money.
Yeah, I'm obviously a big supporter of comic books. Quick question, assuming that you've read some of these, are they kid-friendly?
I would make the argument that they are, but my parents also let me see the first Song movie when I was 10 years old, so I'm not the authority on whether they're kid-friendly. I mean, there is usually never any nudity, and of course there is no expletive language, so maybe the action might be maybe not that kid-friendly, but then again, it's aliens shooting at other aliens, so you never see gore or any of the extravagant violence like a Pulp Fiction movie. So I would think it's okay.
Definitely not Garth and his Punisher. I think that it sounds like they're pretty comparable to what you would see in Discovery, maybe minus any profanity, and maybe with not such extreme gore. But, it's one thing that I just am really big on. My ex-husband, who got me into comics, was let me start over with that. My ex-husband, who got me into comics, started reading when he was a young child because he was dyslexic. And it was very easy for him to read, the little bubbles of dialogue versus a book. So that's how he started reading. And given, he grew up, so he's read comic books his whole life. And I think that when you can find kid-friendly books, it's just a really way to get your kid involved in reading, and another avenue to get your kids involved in Star Trek. So I would say go pick up the book, read it yourself, and then decide if you want to give it to your kid. But they sound pretty cool. So hopefully I can pick up like a trade somewhere when they get published. I need to get the one about Stamets and Culber that came out a while back. Yeah, I need to get that. I really wanted to read that one. So that's on my list.
Anyway, I just thought this would be a good opportunity to just share with everyone about all the great work that they've been doing over at the IDW publishing line. And I believe the IDW team will also be at STLV. So that is one panel you will find me sitting at the very front of the general admission seat, sitting around taking notes. And if you disturb me, I will bite your hand off.
And they usually, I think, give out some free comics. So
all the time.
It's definitely a must-see panel if you're interested in comics at all and you want some free stuff. Okay. So there's one last little piece of news that I wanted to throw out that I missed for STLV. And we'd already talked about our Night of Diversity party. I think... Was it you and Will last week that talked about it, Shashank?
We did.
Okay.
Yep.
So go back and listen to episode 5 to get the intro on what the party is. But we have our first guest booked, and that is artist Laz Marquez. We are actually going to be interviewing him for Shore Leave, too, because he'll be there as a vendor in the vendor's room. But we're super excited to have him there, and he'll be bringing some art along to give away for some raffles or prizes. And we are working on getting more guests and events lined up. We're going to have cosplay contest, and I think there's like a podcast contest, which... Man, I've got some competition, is all I have to say. If I have to go up against PoliTreks and Reading Trek and Trek Profiles and Trek Ranks and Drawing Trek, it's going to be hard. So, and that's just tricorder. I'm sure there will be more podcasts being represented.
You've already taken the tagline of one of the hosts and made it cooler. So you're already well on your way to beating PoliTreks, if you ask me.
Oh, man. Well, I'll just take myself out of the running since I'm a managing partner. Since I get to help run the network, that Jeff and I will step back. I don't know. We're so proud of all of our shows and all of our hosts and all of the good work that you're doing here on the network. Speaking of, we do have some episodes that have come out recently. Like I said, we just did a deep dive on Commander Saru over on DiscoTrek. So that episode is waiting for you. We have a new PoliTreks out called Teaching Trek. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that, Shashank?
Absolutely. It's one of our favorite episodes so far. We had special guest Amy Nelson, and both Amy Nelson and Barry directly teach in classrooms. They're both teachers, or they directly impact inside the schools that they work in. And I work at my state's Department of Education. So the job I do indirectly impacts people at the school level, but I get to be part of some of the overall administrative decisions and the bigger picture education stuff that maybe does not directly translate to the student, but it makes its way through to, we think and hope, making education better. So since we three had unique perspectives, we decided to do an episode called Teaching Trek, in which we talk about various ways in which Star Trek can be used in the classroom. We talked about how Star Trek and a non-Star Trek education would be different, and we essentially found different ways in which Trek and teaching intersect. And at one point, the show got really competitive because both Barry and Amy have Star Trek merchandise in their classrooms. So just wait for that awesome 2-3 minute segment is all I can tell you guys.
Yeah, so number one, you are a teacher of teachers, Shashank. So you deserve full credit for what you do. Don't discount what you do because it's very important. Number two, there's no other podcast I've heard that's like this, that covers teaching Trek and how Star Trek, can can help teach lessons in the classroom, and how we wear our Star Trek pride. I will admit there is, and I'm not going to tell you where in the podcast, but I teared up. There was a story that Amy shared, and yeah, there were tears. So listen to every episode of PoliTreks. Go listen to the debate with Jim Morehouse over Jellicoe, because that was awesome. And I am like I said on Twitter, like I expect the next debate trek to be on Tuvix, and whether Tuvix should have been saved or met the fate that he did. So I'm looking forward to that episode. I don't want to be on it. I just want to listen to it. We have the latest episode of Reading Trek. We didn't get our dinosaurs. Features our friend Thad Haight from Delta Flyer podcast. They're talking about Star Trek Invasion Book 3 Times Enemy. I listened to that one. It's super great. We have a new episode of Shore Leave coming to you soon about the second year slump. Does it exist? What does it mean? I'm excited to explore that subject. And then we've got Trek Ranks in the Work. Top 5 one-off romances is the latest episode. And I think we've got some LGBT-focused episodes coming for Pride Month. And I think we've got another Trek Profiles dropping soon. My dear friend Bill Smith is the guest for episode 4. All of those episodes are must listen. Just listen to everything on this network because it is high quality. I think that covers it. Can you think of anything else we need to talk about?
I do. Since you're on the show, I think it's a good time to point out that last year's STLV was my first STLV. And the thing that helped me the most from the moment I dropped in at the Rio to when I was on my flight back home is the 4 to 5 hour series of episodes that Jeff and Heather did on Shore Leave, along with some special guests, where they just talked about STLV. They covered every minute detail, and these guys went through painstaking efforts to paint a picture of everything that you'd need, where you'd find it, what to do, what not to do, what you should wear, how the weather will be like. There, at one point, they tell you even the grocery stores that are within the radius to where you can probably just walk to and pick stuff up. So if you're a first-time attendee to STLV, or if you just want to make your experience better and more well-organized, I highly recommend you seeking out that series of episodes. And,
Thank you.
Oh, no problem. People can find me at PoliTreks. That's PoliTreks on Twitter and Facebook. And if you want to talk to me personally and nerd out with me about comic books, I would love to do that. And you're awesome for reading comic books. You can find me on at Shashank Avvaru, SHASHANKAVVARU. You're a soldier for writing that down and following it through.
It's worth it for the puppy Zod photos, I just have to say.
I'm sure he likes that compliment.
Yes, he's being very good and quieted down so that we could do this podcast. So he give him extra treats from Auntie Heather.
You got it. Yep.
So you can find our network, including those Shore Leave 101 episodes, which feature our dear friend and now co-host on the network, John Krikorian, and our convention correspondent, Marina Kravchuk, who y'all should know pretty well, along with our co-moderator for the unofficial Star Trek Las Vegas convention group, Jesse Akendo. And I think we spent something like 5+ hours doing those episodes. So I appreciate the shout out there. You find those on the website. We also did Shore Leave on a budget, or STLV on a budget. So if you're still undecided, there are options to go and to not spend thousands of dollars. So I recommend you do that. We are WeeklyTrek on Twitter. I am LLA Posper, which is LLAPAWSPER. My shows are Disco_Trek and at Shore Leave. The network is at Tricorder Show. We are on Patreon. Patreon.com, the Tricorder Transmissions. So many of our episodes, our unedited versions, go up on Patreon. They are first listen for Patreon members, And we've also got some really cool bonus prizes and stuff coming up. We have an exclusive pin button for our Patreon members. The only way you can get that is to be a Patreon donor, whether it's $1 or $5 or more, you still get one. And then I think coming up on June 14th, we're going to have our very first Patreon hangout. That will be hosted by John Krikorian, and I think that Jeff Hewlett will also be there for that one. So that should be pretty fun. So if you're interested in supporting our shows, we would love to have you join our Patreon family. We don't do advertising. This is our sole source of income for the network. And we appreciate, like I said, it doesn't matter if it's $1, $10, whatever. We just love your support. So with all that, that's been the news for the last week of May 2018, including the first day of June. Happy Pride Month, everybody. We're super excited to see you guys at STLV. And until then, live long and prosper.
And have a good week, Homo sapiens.